Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Al Mizan Sunday. Al Mizan Sunday occurs the fourth Sunday of each month, presented by a sister who will be giving us information related to our lives as Muslims and pertaining to the Quran and Sunnah and how we should be living our lives as Muslims. It's meant for an all audience, not an all female audience, but from a female perspective. This week, we will be presenting our Taleem on caring for our elders or caring for our pioneers. We'll bring in a subject matter expert and we'll be discussing things that we need to take into consideration as children and as caretakers of our aging generation. We picked this topic because there were several sisters having a discussion around taking care of our aging parents. My father is 92 years old. He became a Muslim in his 30s. So he's been a Muslim for many years. But we were having a discussion about how he's aging and the things that are necessary in order to ensure that he has a good quality of life and ensure that we're helping him to meet his religious obligations as a Muslim. So today we're going to talk about how we as second generation and third generation Muslims who are now becoming our parents, our pioneers, caretakers, things that we can do to help them on this journey. Allah tells us that we should place the care of our parents utmost on our priorities. So we're going to have that discussion also. We brought in a subject matter expert who's going to be giving us various resources and experience. She has a lot of experience in this area. We're going to talk about some American demographics as it pertains to caretakers and what that looks like going into the future for those of us who will be caretakers and for the group of our pioneers who now may need assistance from us as their caretakers. We're going to look at some Quranic guidance as it pertains to caring for our parents and our elders, and then the responsibility of from us as an ummah related to this and our aging population. So we're also going to cover next steps, things we can do as an ummah, things you can do as a daughter or a son of an aging parent or pioneer in our community. And then we'll wrap it up, but we'll leave resources for you available. We want to make sure that at the end of this ta'aleem, inshallah, you will have the opportunity to gain insight and gain some resources that will help you in making sure that your parent or your elder has a high quality of life and that they're also meeting their religious obligations as a Muslim. So at this point, I'm going to bring in Consuela Lazard, who is a registered social worker, and she will be leading us in a discussion around taking care of our elders, and she's going to give you more details about herself as a social worker. And Consuela, before I bring you in, I need to show the slide around the demographics in our community. I'm just going to put this up really quickly. This is a projection, or this is from the U.S. Census. Is actually the population for the U.S. population from the year 2000. It represents 2000, 2010, and 2020. And what it shows you is that in the year 2000, the age of our elders dropped significantly as they became, or the number of elders that we had dropped significantly by age 65 here. Whereas if you look here at the year 2020, the age is staying plateaued pretty much as far as our elders. It isn't dropping off until they're well into their 70s, 80s, even 90s. So what that tells us is that our parents, alhamdulillah, are living longer, but that also means that once they reach those higher years in age, they're probably going to need more assistance from us. So this is one of the reasons why we want to make sure that we have this discussion so that we have sufficient care for our elders. This one shows us the population and some of the gaps that exist as far as groups in our aging population. It just shows you the difference in some of these. I don't know.
I don't hear anything.
Oh, you don't hear it? Okay, maybe that's just on my side. So I just wanted to share these two demographic slides that shows the changes in the demographics and how it's going to be more imperative for us to ensure that we have someone in place that can take care of our elders because they are living longer, which is a good thing. But as you get older, there may be more need for assistance. And the fact that we're going to have more aging adults than those who may be available to take care of them, we have to be very strategic in the choices that we're making and how we help them move along into their golden years. Okay, so now I will pass it on to you, Consuela, and I'll put up your slides. There you go.
Perfect. Thank you so much for welcoming me. So today we're going to be talking about transitional elder care and just some additional resources that we all may need in order to provide adequate care for our elder population. Next slide. So just to start off, here's a little background about me. My name is Consuela Lazard Pierce, and I have over 10 years of experience within the public sector. And I do believe that elderly and disabled populations are voiceless treasures that are often overlooked and neglected. I do have a Bachelor of Science in Sociology degree, as well as a Master's of Social Work degree. And I have over 6 years of experience with the Texas Department of Family Protective Services, as well as the Health and Human Services Commission in investigating allegations of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. I also have over 3 years of case management experience providing services and resources for elderly and disabled populations within Harris County. I do have 3 children and 1 grandson whom I love dearly, and I strive every day to make sure that my legacy is strong for them. So let's move to my why. Next slide. So my why is my dad. My dad's name was Otis Lazard, and he and I were amazingly close when he was alive. He was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer in 2019, and although he showed signs of dementia, his PCP and neurologist refused to diagnose him with early onset Alzheimer's disease. And I don't know if any of you have ever dealt with not being able to be diagnosed with the disease, but let me tell you, your resources are limited because a physician is your barrier. They are the gatekeepers to getting additional resources. So you have to have a diagnosis from a physician. So coincidentally, I began interning with a program called Gail Wells Foundation for Early Onset Alzheimer's and Care. And we'll talk a little bit more about them later on in the presentation. And they provided so much guidance and resources, not only for my father, but for several of my disabled clients, as well as the remaining members of my family who were providing care for my father. So I initially took on caretaking for him. I was providing care for him. I had 3 minor children at the time. I had a full-time job and I was in graduate school. So if you can imagine, that is a plate full of responsibility. And I'm pretty sure adult children all experience the same thing. You're trying to juggle work life, home life, and making sure that your older parent is well taken care of. And it can become stressful and overwhelming. So my mother, seeing that I was overwhelmed at that time, she decided to step in and start providing care for him, which was amazing because at that time they were divorced. She stepped in and provided as much care as she possibly could. And we just tag teamed along, chugged along to do everything we could to make sure he had everything he needed until his final days. But there were some resources that were amazing. Along with Gail Wells Foundation, we also had the Patient Access Network, and we'll talk about that. They really genuinely helped a lot with medication. So we're going to get a little bit into that, and I'm going to tie in some of my resources that I picked up along the way with my dad and some of the tips and tricks that we picked up as well while I'm presenting. Next slide. So some things that we want to look out for when we are trying to help our elder parents. We want to observe for changes or deficiencies. So we want to look for changes in their mobility. Are they walking differently? Are they moving their limbs a little differently? My father's change was his walk, his gait. He was no longer picking his feet up to walk. He was shuffling as though he was skiing on the ground. So that told us that either we're having joint issues or issues with just picking up his legs in general. Are we having issues with finances? Is mom or dad or grandmother, grandfather, are they spending a little too much money, or are they not paying bills on time? So we want to follow up and see what could be happening there. Memory issues. Are we forgetting if we ate that day? Is mom or dad forgetting people's names? Are we having conversations and then mom and dad is turning around and asking the same question within like a 5 to 10 minute period? So we want to pay attention to those changes. Personality changes. Sometimes, we have elders who are very happy and joyful, and then all of a sudden they become angry and they become upset. So if you know that this is not a norm for your parent, that's a key sign to say, wait, something is happening, something has changed. Another great thing that you want to pay attention to is activities of daily living. If you start to notice that your elder parent is no longer able to feed themselves, to groom themselves, to dress themselves, you want to really take a look into what is the issue, what's the problem, what's happening. So now we want to go into the talk. Next slide. So the first thing that we want to do when we decide, okay, I'm noticing these changes with my parent, it's time to have a conversation with them. You first and foremost, I think for me, I love to just take a deep breath first, because that's a huge task to handle. You're now changing the dynamics a bit when it comes to child-parent relationship, especially when you have parents that are in that authoritative mode. They are very comfortable with telling you what to do and are not comfortable with receiving any kind of advice or guidance. So you want to be patient with yourself and patient with the parent, because it can get a little stressful. And the parent may feel as though their independence is being threatened when having that conversation. I know with my dad, we had to take the keys from him because he was forgetting different ways of driving, different places that he had been driving for 30 years. And it was difficult. It was hard on us because we thought we would never get to that point. And it was hard on him because he felt as though we were taking a piece of him away from him. So just be very patient, be gentle in your approach, because we have to understand that it's not that easy for them to understand that their capabilities are becoming limited. So be gentle in how you talk to them and remind them that the steps taken going forward are to provide more resources and help for them and the family. If we can explain to them that, okay, I'm trying to get more information for us so that we can make sure that you have everything you need, they may be a little more willing and accepting to what's happening and what you're trying to provide for them. The next step is a medical examination. So just like I said before, that PCP, that doctor, the specialist, they are your gatekeeper for whatever it is that you need. So an extensive physical examination completed by your parent's PCP, their primary care physician, can provide the family with a formal report of health, as well as recommendations for care and treatment. So we often see changes in behavioral abilities, right? But because we are not practitioners, we're not medical doctors, we cannot diagnose the source of the problem. So we can't say essentially, mom is acting a little different. She's, talking to people that aren't there because she's getting older. It could be a UTI, and UTIs in elderly populations, it exhibits as delusions and paranoia. So you want to make sure that you get them to a doctor to get them diagnosed and get the appropriate treatment. One huge example that I use all the time, whenever, and please understand, I'm not comparing parents or humans to cars, but if you are a good steward, a good responsible owner of a car, when your car light comes on, the first thing you're going to do is take it to a mechanic to find out what is the problem, what is it that I need to do to get it fixed, what does it need. The same thing with our bodies. Our bodies need maintenance, they need care, and when those warning signs start coming up, those pains and changes, we want to get to the doctor to find out exactly what's going on so that we can get the appropriate treatment and resources and care that we need. So from a therapeutic guidance as well, given the fact that not all families are created equally, some dynamics can cause prevention in a parent trusting any recommendations. Sometimes child and parent have a strained relationship, no relationship at all. So parent may not want to hear what child is trying to recommend when it comes to resources and additional things that they may need in the house. So depending on the parent's needs and resources received, social workers or therapists can assist adult children with persuading a parent to accept assistance of any kind. And the goal is to have the caregiver and the parent on the same accord regarding the needs. So a trained, licensed individual can come in and guide the conversation and try to get everybody on the same page for the patient's benefit. Next slide. So we're still talking at this point. Now that we have seen the doctor, we're all on the same page. The next thing that we definitely want to do is have that conversation about advanced directives. And I know that this is a very difficult conversation to have. For some reason, we're all so afraid of that morbid topic of death, but it genuinely helps when an adult child is prepared and they understand what their parent wants going forward if they become incapacitated and cannot speak for themselves. So we'll start off with talking with advanced directives. So the first is a directive to physicians and family. This particular directive details the patient's wishes about withdrawing or withholding life-sustaining procedures if their condition is terminal or irreversible and death is imminent. And the condition must be certified by 2 physicians. So let me back up a little bit as well. All of these directives are only used when the parent is incapacitated. They cannot make decisions for themselves. They cannot speak for themselves. So at this point, parent has appointed 1 child, maybe 2, to make those decisions for them. Usually it's only 1 in the state of Texas, and that's just to limit any amount of confusion. The next is a medical power of attorney. The patient authorizes 1 person to make medical decisions on their behalf in the event of the patient becoming incapacitated. The authorized person can no longer make decisions for the patient once capacity is restored. So this is more of a temporary situation. Let's say mom had a stroke. She cannot speak. She cannot make decisions for herself. So she has already appointed daughter Susie to come in and make medical decisions on her behalf until she regains the capacity to speak for herself and make medical decisions for herself. Then we have the out-of-hospital DNR. This is extremely important because we want our family members to know what our wishes are in the event that we cannot speak for ourselves and it looks as though we're beginning to transition. So an out-of-hospital DNR instructs emergency personnel to not provide life-sustaining or resuscitating measures and to allow the patient to pass away naturally. Now, palliative or comfort care is still provided. These are usually seen in my world within the hospice field of life. When clients know that they're about to pass away and they've already been diagnosed with a terminal illness, they'll sign an out-of-hospital DNR saying, if I transition, please do not resuscitate me. But if you do not have an out-of-hospital DNR on file or recorded, there is a huge possibility, well, not even a huge possibility, EMS will get there and they will resuscitate you. So if you choose to pass away naturally, you would need to complete that out of hospital DNR and put it in the safe hands of someone, hopefully a safe and secure family member. The last is a durable power of attorney. This is where the patient authorizes one person to make decisions about only their property or finances when they are unable to do so. So this has nothing to do with medical. It is only finances and property. And there will be a link for all of these advanced directives as well. The next thing that we want to talk to our parent about is final arrangements. I can't tell you how important it is to know what your family member wants when it comes to those final arrangements. Memorial versus funeral, cremation versus burial. How is it that you want everything to align? For my father, one thing that he always told me was, we are sure to be born and we are sure to die. So I want you to understand, daughter, I will die one day. And when I do, this is what I want done. This is how I want it done. And because he and I were so close, I grieved in a natural way, but I also had the plan in mind because he had prepared me years in advance. He had prepared me so well to where I knew what we were eating for the repast. So it's good to have these conversations so that when something does happen, the plan is laid out. You know exactly what your family members' wishes are, and you can follow through with them without having to deal with the stress of losing a loved one, as well as making final arrangements. And the last is estate planning. So making sure that you have a living will. If you have any type of property or things within your home and you want them to go to a particular person, you want to put that in your living will. Some living wills also include the advanced directives of whether or not they want to be resuscitated, appointing a particular person as the power of attorney. So they can have that in the living will as well. Another thing that we want to pay attention to is the real estate of an individual who may be passing on. So you want to ask mom, dad, this house that you're living in, this house that you worked so hard for, what do you want to do with it? Do you want it to pass on into the family generation? Do you want it to just stay in the family, or do you want us to sell it? What would you like done with it? So you want to get all of those answers before it's too late. And the conversation will be difficult, possibly, but it's good to have so that you know exactly what you're looking at. Next slide. So now let's get into some patient caregiver resources. So when it comes to mobility, we do have for Medicaid members, for anybody who's receiving Medicaid, there are adaptive equipment that can be provided, and it can be purchased once every 5 years. Usually that's your motorized wheelchairs, specialized wheelchairs. So there are wheelchairs that are specially made for just your body. And with Medicaid, that includes the purchase of the item as well as repair and maintenance of the equipment. So that's great. There is a long list of things that you could get through Medicaid, not only, just so that you can walk and move around your home, but also that you can function within your home. If you need a ramp to get into your home because now you're on a walker or a wheelchair, if you need handles in your bathroom, they will assist with that. And the same with Medicare as well. So Medicare has durable medical equipment as well. But here is the kicker with Medicare. With Medicare, you have to have a Medicare enrolled physician write the prescription for that equipment. So in order for you to get anything through Medicare, your physician has to say, yes, this person needs this particular equipment because of this condition. Now, when it comes to medical, we have the Patient Access Network, and that's the network that I was talking about earlier with my father. The Patient Access Network is a nonprofit 501 organization that assists with paying for medications and medical procedures. For my father, he had cancer, and some of the medications that he was prescribed cost $12,000 for a 6-month supply. There was no way we could afford that. So we applied for the Patient Access Network. We submitted all of his information, his diagnoses and insurance information, and they approved him for 2 years worth of that medication. We didn't have to pay one dime for any of those medications. And it doesn't just cover for cancer. It covers for lupus, autoimmune diseases, any type of disease. They pretty much cover that. Now, the one new thing that they just threw in was the medical procedures. I wasn't able to tap into that, and I haven't yet, so I'm looking forward to it. But they have been tremendously helpful in the population with in the community with coming along with helping others for financial purposes of that nature. So the next thing that we want to talk about, the next great organization, is the Gail Wells Foundation. So the Gail Wells Foundation is mostly geared around Alzheimer's disease. They provide education, resources, and training for patients and caregivers related to Alzheimer's disease. If you have a parent who is dealing with Alzheimer's or dementia, especially early onset, because it's so difficult to get a diagnosis for early onset dementia, and because you don't have that diagnosis, the resources are lacking. Gail Wells Foundation will come in and try their best to provide the family with as much resources as possible. If you need placement for your loved one because maybe their behaviors have become too erratic or too aggressive for the family and they can't stay in the home, they'll come in and try and help and find placement for that individual. If you need to find appropriate treatment at a placement that's going to provide appropriate care for them, they will come in and do that. And their goal is to make sure that they never turn anyone away. So even if it's something that they've never experienced before, they will go above and beyond to make sure that they look into what it is that they can do for you. And the next social service organization is the Houston Health Department. So they are a federally funded social service agency that provides support for caregivers. They provide mental health counseling, medication assistance, residential repairs, and the residential repairs are more so for those durable medical equipment that I was speaking of earlier. If you need something installed in your home to help you move around your home easily, they'll help with that, as well as non-emergency transportation for adults who are 60 and over, and benefits counseling. The benefits counseling is amazing because let's say that you're an individual that you don't know that you could be receiving additional resources when it comes to income or medical resources. They will sit there with you and look over all of your diagnoses, your medications, whatever it is that you have going on, and they'll try and apply for different benefits for you on your behalf to make sure that you're getting all of the benefits that you are eligible for. Next slide. So let's talk about transitional care options. The first thing that you definitely want to do when it comes to transitional care, because now it appears as though mom or dad, grandmother, grandfather, they can no longer stay in the home. We can't provide the kind of care that they need at this point. What do we do next? You want to document, you want to collect documentation. So gathering important documents is crucial. You want to start off with getting birth certificates if you have to order them online because mom or dad lived out of state or were born out of state. Order birth certificates, life insurance policies, medical insurance cards, social security cards, any medical documentation that has a diagnosis on it. You want to gather all of those things and make sure that you store it in a safe place. Now, usually for me, I store them in two different places. The first place that I store them is my safety security box because I have the key and it's not going anywhere. But of course, we know that anything can happen. Something can happen to my home and safety security box is gone. So I also make sure that I scan all of those documents. When I scan them, I save them into a particular safe drive as well as on my computer. So I have an electronic version of all of my documents for my family members. And I also have that physical document that's in the safe security box. Now, when it comes to password storage, this one is a little tricky. I am fairly young and I can't keep up with my passwords that well, but I also don't trust many password storage servers or softwares right now because they are dealing with so many security breaches. And I definitely don't want my passwords to get lost in the crunch in that. So I tend to save my passwords in a Google document within my phone or my laptop. And that's how I did it with my father because it was hard for him to remember passwords as well. I can't tell you how many times we had to break into a laptop because he had changed the password and completely forgot it. So we just kind of kept our own process with saving it. So when it comes to finding the appropriate long-term care, as you see, we have 4 different types of transitional care placements. Now, there are plenty more in the Houston area, but these 4 are the ones that I'm more familiar with. When it comes to personal care homes, these homes are the places where if mom or dad are still able to handle their activities of daily living, they can feed themselves, they can groom themselves, bathe themselves. They have no problem with toileting. They have no problem with walking to and fro. But you know that you just cannot provide the care that they need any longer. You can look into a personal care home to place them there. The next place is an assisted living facility. So I usually think of an assisted living facility as that step right before a skilled nursing facility or a nursing home. So with an assisted living facility, most of them look like a nursing home, but each unit looks like a little small miniature apartment. So mom or dad they have the privacy that they need. They have their own space, but they still have the care that they need around. I have not come across an assisted living facility that assists them with medication. So if they need assistance with medication, assisted living is not the best choice, but they have the independence, but they also have that supervision that's still there for them. A skilled nursing facility, they are more so short-term stints. So let's say mom or dad broke their hip and they just need to go in for rehabilitation. They've had a stroke and they just need short-term care for rehabilitation. Those are the best options. Most nursing homes provide skilled nursing as well. And of course, we all know that with nursing home care, it's long-term. You're placing mom or dad there so that they can receive medical treatment, medical assistance treatment and care, since you cannot at that point. Next slide. So here are the resources. With speaking with Mrs. Amin, she will be providing all of the resources that we've talked about. You will be able to access every link to get the forms that you're needing. If you're needing advanced directives, if you're needing to complete a living will for yourself and you either have children or you don't, you can do that. If you want to look into finding out what type of mobility assistance there is, you'll be able to do that as well. Next slide. And the next slide is just additional resources for medical assistance. That is for the Patient Access Network, social services for the Gail Wells Foundation, as well as Houston Health, and the long-term care link. This particular link, I have used this ongoing for different facilities. So if you want to look into a nursing facility and you want the best of the best, because we all want the best of the best, this link will take you to the Health and Human Services Commission link that you can pull up a particular facility and see if they've had any infractions and what those infractions were. So let's say, the state went in and did an inspection on that facility and they found a lot of things wrong. You can then make a conscious decision to say, okay, this is the best choice for my parent or this is not. So it's kind of like that inside look to see if it works for your family or if it doesn't. And that is my presentation. I think the next slide has my contact information if anybody would like to contact me. If you have any questions, you need any additional resources, I have no problem with passing the knowledge on. And thank you again so much for having me.
Let's meet it. Sorry. Thank you. That was a lot of information, but useful information. And I think sometimes just having someone that you can trust to give you the resources is a benefit in itself, because when you go and start searching the internet, you find all these videos and things that'll tell you, oh, give us your trust and we'll give you this information and blah, blah, blah. And you find out later, no, they were after money, or it was a scam for information or whatever. And especially for our elders, um, I call it clickbait after clickbait. When if they have access to a computer around, you know, people that are saying they're coming to help you or they're a resource for you, when in actuality they're looking to take advantage. So it's quite helpful to have someone that we can trust and get information from, and then go and do our due diligence, especially if we're doing it on behalf of a loved one. So I really appreciate you coming and joining us and giving us this useful information. Again, as Consuela said, I will post those links that she mentioned, and then some further links in the comment section. So at any time you can come back to this video and pull those links up and go directly to those sources that were cited. So thank you again so much. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna pull you out. Okay, so we want to thank Consuela for her um, information that she shared with us. But I also wanted to take time to talk about our spiritual obligations, our making sure that our parents or our elders, our pioneers, are able to meet their spiritual obligations. I know for my dad, he still likes to attend Juma. He still likes to attend events at the masjid. So we like to make sure that we're taking care of those needs or helping him to take care of those needs. But I found a couple of ayah in the Quran that references how Allah says we should be taking care of our parents. This comes from Surah Al-Isra, 17 and 23. For your Lord has decreed that you worship none but him, and honor your parents. If none or both of them reach old age in your care, never say to them even oof, nor yell at them. Rather, address them respectfully. And this is just giving you an idea of the regardfulness, of the level of regard that we should pay to our parents. Another ayat that I found related to our taking care of our elders was in relation to what Allah forbids. And it would seem as if it was odd to mention the parents here, where Allah is telling us what is considered a major sin in our religion, but mistreating of the parents is considered a major sin. So, O Prophet, this is Surah 6, Ayat 151. Say, O Prophet, come, let me recite to you what your Lord has forbidden to you. Do not associate others with him in worship. Do not fail to honor your parents. Do not kill your children for fear of poverty. We provide for you and for them. Do not come near indecencies, openly or secretly. Do not take a human life made sacred by Allah except with legal right. This is what he has commanded you. So perhaps you will understand. And my studies have told me that this, how you care for your parents, is mentioned in this particular ayat because of its high importance, and that knowingly mistreating your parents is a sin and is a major sin. So we should, as the sons and daughters, as the youth who are pioneers, should make not only an effort, but our best effort to ensure that our parents are provided for and taken care of. So that's another reason why we wanted to have this Taleem, just to give us as the children, as the potential caretakers for our pioneers, for our our elders, an opportunity to sit and reflect on how we as individuals can help in this matter. And then how can we as an ummah, what can we do as an ummah to help in some of these areas? We talked about a lot of the social programs, but as far as their spirituality is concerned, as they're getting older, like I said, my father is 92. He was an imam at one point in his life. He was still an imam. He's not actively working in that capacity now. Um, but he still wants to go to Juma. And my husband and I try to make an effort to get him there when he can physically go. But how are we creating, as an ummah, creating opportunities for our elders to come together? Are we ensuring that we provide alternative means to participate and attend our Juma and other events? You know, here at masjidwdm, we do the Friday streaming of our Jumas, and we do the streaming of our Sunday Taleems. But we also try to stream other events and activities, but there could be more that we're doing. And if you're asking yourself, okay, well, how can I participate in an activity such as that? That's a good question. We definitely need your help. We need to set aside funding for assisting our pioneers with expenses. There could be expenses outside of what Consuela mentioned that they need assistance with. It could be mobility issues. It could be dietary issues. It's very difficult if they're in one of the feeding programs to get halal foods, for instance. So these are things that as a community we should be considering as it relates to our aging population. And as I showed in the demographic slide, that population is getting larger and larger. And alhamdulillah, they're living longer, but we want to ensure that their quality of life is also improved and is at a high standard that we would want, and that Allah would be pleased with us for providing for our parents and our elders. Assist with those who like to check in. Some people have a sincere, I would say, gift for connecting with the pioneers, with the elders, and they still may need your assistance in some area of setting up some type of formal check-in process with checking in on our pioneers. So I believe there's a lot of opportunity in this area for us here in Houston, as well as in other masajids across the U.S. As I mentioned, our pioneers, they range from 65 and up, but and are all around our country. So we should be definitely considering this as not only a masjid, but as an ummah. So next steps for you. Consuela gave us a lot of information. I would suggest you scan some of those links that we put in the comment section for information as pertains to your parent. I know some of the tougher conversations may be with our elders who don't necessarily feel as though they need assistance or don't want assistance from us or don't want to burden us. But it is our obligation, and maybe presenting it in that format, that is my obligation as a Muslim. I would like to receive my blessings is to make sure that you're good as my parent or as my mother or my father, to make sure that you're taken care of in the way Allah would like for us to be able to take care of you. So schedule that conversation with your loved ones. I did that with my father recently, and I found out some things that I assumed he'd taken care of because he's my father and he's responsible like that. But so I made some assumptions, but when I actually sat down and started getting information from him about, janaza plans and burial plans and things like that, there was less. He had done less than I had assumed he'd done in that area. So scheduling that conversation with your loved ones, and then additional areas to determine their wishes related to helping them meet their religious obligations. If they have mobility issues, it may be as simple as you going and setting up their computer for them on Friday so that they can watch Juma remotely, or coming and picking them up, or arranging for transportation for them. There is Islamic burial information, and this is something vitally important, especially if you have family members who aren't Muslim and may not understand the rites and rituals of a janaza. And then get help, tap into the resources that we presented. There's also other resources that I will be posting related to Islamic relief. They have some resources related to feeding, American Muslim Community Fund. There's several, these are mostly Muslim resources that I'm also going to list as it pertains to helping our elders religiously and helping them to meet their religious obligations once they start the aging process. So the intent of today's Ta'aleem was to share information and to get those of us who are second, third generation Muslims who have pioneers as our parents and who brought us into the deen. And alhamdulillah, we would like them for them to continue to live a healthy and comfortable life. And Allah only knows when their final day comes. Our day may come before theirs, but until then, as their offspring, we have an obligation to ensure that we give them the best life possible or help them to live the best life possible. So, inshallah, this was useful. You received some useful information, some inspiration that will inspire you to go and start some conversations. Maybe start a group or an organization that can reach out and help some of our elders who are in our communities, whether it be Houston or whether it be elsewhere. So inshallah, you gain something. Anything that was said in error is on me, and anything that you gain from this, inshallah, you will use it and share it with others in your family and in your community. So right now we'll end this ta'aleem, and I want to say assalamu alaikum and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.